evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm State Senate President Donald Williams. Connecticut's budget crisis is nearly 3 years old. Like virtually every other state in the nation, our budget has been devastated by global recession. But today, it's time to turn the page. The people of Connecticut elected us to avoid gridlock and solve the budget deficit. We are here today to announce a budget agreement between the majority legislative leadership and the governor of the state of Connecticut. Governor Malloy deserves much credit for proposing a courageous and honest and balanced budget in February. As a result, this budget agreement today has no borrowing, no gimmicks, no one-time revenues. It has $2 billion in concessions for state employees, more than any other governor has asked for. The budget contains tough spending cuts and consolidations for nearly every state agency and department. And the revenue increases have been modified to help preserve jobs and protect families struggling in these tough times. Governor Malloy has raised the bar, and we're announcing that tomorrow the General Assembly's budget committees will approve a budget that adheres to the framework that he proposed. I can tell you the cooperation that we have received from the governor and his office in this process has been a breath of fresh air. I want to thank Senators Tony Harp, Eileen Daly, and Representatives Tony Walker and Pat Widlitz for working very hard to refine the budget so that it honors the governor's pledge of shared sacrifice. Make no mistake, there is still much work to be done. This is not the end of the budget process, but it is a giant step forward. I'd like to introduce now the Speaker of the House, Chris Donovan.
Thank you, Senator Williams. I want to also thank you for being my partners. We work together to provide the best budget of the state of Connecticut. This budget builds upon Governor Malloy's framework and is a balanced solution to the deficit. Spending reductions, government efficiencies, taxes, and concessions. I want to thank Governor Malloy for putting forward a responsible, honest budget. But the budget is a result of many people willing to work hard, willing to work together, and willing to listen to reasonable ideas for the best solution for Connecticut. From the beginning, we talked about how making certain shared sacrifice also needed to be fair sacrifice. Our committees, Finance and Appropriations, listened to the public, as did the governor, and worked to improve the framework. Working together, we've achieved that in this budget. It asks more of our wealthiest residents who can afford it. It softens the tax burden on the middle class while maintaining funding for schools, cities and towns, and protects our most vulnerable citizens. This is a fair, responsible budget that will move Connecticut forward. And as we share in our sacrifice to benefit our state, Connecticut, we too will share in its recovery and prosperity. And with that, I'd like to introduce our fine governor, Governor Daniel Malloy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great, it's a great day to get to. Thank you. Thank you. I want to begin by thanking the President Pro Tem, Don Williams, my friend, the Speaker, Chris Donovan, Majority Leader Marty Looney, and Brendan Sharkey. Thank you for all of your hard work and input. The Finance Chairs, Eileen Daly and Pat Widlitz, for your hard work. Thank you. Our Appropriations Committee Chairs, Tony Harp and Tony Walker, thank you for all of the work that you put into this. To the members of the caucus and their staffs, I want to thank all of them. And to the people who worked with me and for me in these discussions, I want to thank that whole team, beginning with Ben Barnes and Tim Bannon and Andrew McDonald and Roy on their part, and all of the team that we assembled, including our legislative team. All of these people worked very hard, hours and hours of meetings and hours of public hearings and more, to produce a responsible document. And I want everyone here to know that I acknowledge the hard work that the legislature has done. The second thing I want to say is that today is not a day of celebration. What we are asking the people of Connecticut to do is to agree with us to make shared sacrifice in the hopes and in the expectations that in doing so we will find a better Connecticut sooner rather than later, and that we will correct the behaviors of the past, building a stronger Connecticut on a much stronger fiscal footing. When I proposed this budget on February 16th, I said I thought it was the right framework and that it was built on the right principles. No new spending, no gimmicks, no deferring of our obligations, and shared sacrifice. Within that framework, I said I was open to hearing better ideas and negotiating with the legislature. And that's exactly what happened. As you know, I did 17 town hall meetings, and many state representatives and state senators and members of the leadership specifically attended those. I was listening, and in listening was well prepared for the discussions that needed to take place between my office and that of the committee chairs and the Senate and House leadership. I'm proud to say that in the end result is a better product, as I had anticipated it would be, than the February 16th document. That's because more people had more time to have a substantial input on this document. But it does honor the framework, an important framework that means that we will be compliant with generally accepted accounting principles, that we're not filled with gimmicks, that we understand the hard work that remains to be done, and that we are willing to work with all representatives of good intentions to resolve the state's problems, Republicans and Democrats. Now, some people might say, where are the Republicans today? I want you to say that there's been no exclusion on my part of willingness to accept input from Republicans on this budget. But there is a simple reality. The time was passing, and we needed to get the work done. And I am extremely proud of the Democratic caucuses and the committees for their hard work preparatory to this moment and preparatory to tomorrow's votes. What we have here is a framework we can all support. What we have here is a budget which we will build upon in the future. What we have is an opportunity to take our state back, to put it on the right direction, aim it in the right direction, and begin the process of creating jobs once again. This is something that Republicans and Democrats can agree about. Whether we agree with all of the things that are in this budget, whether we agree with all the revenue or all the cuts or all the programs or anything, Democrats and Republicans can join around this concept that Connecticut is going to tell the truth about its budget woes and begin the process of addressing them in a straightforward fashion. And this would not have been possible without the leadership of all of the individuals who I've mentioned by name and the members of the legislature, Senate, and House that have worked so diligently through the committee structure to get us to this day. I want to thank everyone. If I've left anyone out, I apologize, but clearly this is a day that I'm proud to have upon us, and I have to tell you in all honesty, a day that came sooner than I would have otherwise expected, and I think that that's a good sign. Thank you very much.
the information sheet that was handed to us has the total tax increase smaller. So how is that being made up? Are you assuming revenue estimates are going up? How does this work?
Well, I think smaller is better. I said that we would not have a tax package that was in excess of $1.5 billion, and we don't. There's additional work to do, but I think but it is a constraint that we can easily live within.
It's fair to say this won't work without the $1 billion in givebacks from the state labor union.
It's fair to say that this budget would work best with that.
There's a $1 billion hole, I would suspect.
Listen, I've stated for my part on a number of occasions that at $1.5 billion or now less, that we've put a cap on how much we're going to raise taxes.
So what's the spending then?
Great voice.
Are there any more spending cuts to make up for the revenue?
You should look at, I think, right. There's a decrease in spending. Small decrease.
Budget director. Size of the tax decrease, though.
No.
More federal revenue coming in, Mark. What then is going to be the pattern here? You don't have the labor deal yet, so you have the committee votes. Where do you proceed from there?
Well, listen, I think I think we should proceed as rapidly as possible. I know that there are some folks suggesting a vote, at least in one house, as early as next week. I certainly wouldn't be heard to complain. But having said that, we're going to proceed in an orderly fashion to the next step. We're here to celebrate this step, and between the leaders, we'll design a course, I believe, towards the additional steps necessary to pass a budget.
Pass something without having the labor deal? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's around the discussions that I'll have with the Speaker and the Majority Leader, and with the President Pro Tem and the Majority Leader, and with the teams that they designate. But if you're asking me whether I thought that's the worst idea in the world, I'd say no.
Your own budget director suggested that if gap principles were applied, the deficit's closer to $5 billion. You've said you'd never sign an unbalanced budget. Is this really a balanced budget?
I think this budget will be gap compliant. As you know, we issued, Ben Barnes yesterday issued a plan to be totally gap compliant, and including paying the gap debt beginning in 2014. Let's have that final discussion when we have a final budget.
Let's talk about no gimmicks. Is this really a balanced budget for the state of Connecticut?
Yes. Let me push back. I'm not push back in the sense that, listen, I'm the first governor to fully fund a pension obligation ever in this state. $877 million is what we thought. We'll make some adjustments, but we're going to fully fund our obligations, period.
Getting back to Steve's question, though, if you're going to have a vote next week, then it would seem to me that there's not much to discuss. Either you get your union concessions, or if you don't, then you as governor, if a budget is passed, are the one who works on how to fill the hole? I mean, how does that work?
Again, we're here to make an announcement about where we are today. I want to be very respectful of the Speaker and the House Majority Leader, of the President and the Senate Majority Leader, and quite frankly, I'll reach out to the other side. We'll get to that point. But I think that what we're here to say is, earlier than anyone thought, and let me say that again. Earlier than anyone thought was possible, the administrative side of government, the executive side of government, and the legislative side of government are in agreement, at least amongst the Democrats.
I'm sorry. That if you adopt a budget with a $2 billion hole to be filled in later by union concessions, if that doesn't happen, then where do you go? I'm still not clear.
And what I'm saying, and I think it's quite clear that there's agreement that we know what our cap is. And I've spoken before. I don't want to put words into the mouths of the President Pro Tem or the Speaker on a subject matter that we have not discussed. So, but let me just finish and. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to finish. I don't want to put words into their mouth, but I believe that in very short order we'll be in a position to move forward.
But would it put more pressure on the unions then in your negotiations? If the legislature passes a budget that assumes $2 billion in concessions, and you have said, if I don't get that, I'm going to shred programs and I'm going to lay off thousands of workers. Senate President Williams said basically that yesterday during a news conference, that by requiring this $2 billion, it puts pressure on the unions.
Yeah, what I would say to you on this matter is that I have done my utmost to treat people with respect. I am encouraged by the fact that we remain having discussions with representatives of our unionized labor force. I'm encouraged that has not disintegrated to what we see play out in other states. Somehow, some way, Connecticut is different. I think that's a good thing.
6 or 7 of the sales tax exemptions that you had proposed eliminating have been restored or changed in one case. So does that mean have the income tax rates been jiggered up again, or where's that money coming back from?
There is some adjustments to
since last week.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It is.
Yep, it is.
You just said in very short order.
You want to?
There's also been, the income tax was adjusted, as well as there was an adjustment on the luxury tax. It was before it was a level, and then they added to it, so we simplified it. So there was an adjustment there, and then there was also an adjustment on some other little taxes here and there. I think the generation was a minor one as well.
To make up what you're losing there, you've adjusted the income tax rates a little more.
Mainly that was it.
Yeah.
Governor, is it fair to say that if one or both houses of the General Assembly basically endorses a $1 billion concession, that it strengthens your hand? And
this concept of strength and that kind of stuff is something that I'm trying to avoid talking about. I'm trying to be respectful of a process that is ongoing and is remarkable in the sense that it continues to be ongoing. So I'm not going to use words, or I'm going to do my utmost not to use words that are in any way inflammatory or disrespectful. You can use whatever words you want. I'm hopeful.
Governor, you just said in very short order we'll be in a position to move forward. Are you anticipating a breakthrough with the unions?
No, I'm anticipating the breakthrough that I'm celebrating today. I celebrate holidays one at a time.
But you started off the news conference by saying this isn't a day to celebrate, and now you're saying you're celebrating.
In a sense, it's celebrate the fact that we are. I have to let's just be very honest. We are at a point sooner than I had anticipated we would be. And we're only at this point because of the hard work of the committee chairs, their committees, the leadership, and a willingness and an ability that some people might not have predicted of us all to work together. That's why we're here. That's how we got here. I'm going to celebrate the fact that we get along enough to get to this point. But what I want to be very clear is what we need to do. I never should have used the word celebrate, because when you ask people to make sacrifices, that's not something to celebrate. But I am proud that we've come together and understood very clearly that it's in the best interest of the people of the state of Connecticut to get our work done sooner rather than later.
To get back to this union thing, perhaps maybe not pressure or give you strength in your hand. Would it maybe encourage the unions to cooperate?
That's such a slippery slope. I remember, I'm just trying to be hopeful. Last question. Anybody?
Well, how are the union discussions going since last we spoke?
I think they're going. Listen. There's no white smoke coming out of the chimney right now, but you haven't seen any black smoke either. So let's just keep working.
In the union negotiations, they usually, there's a give and take for a long time, but over the course of that give and take, some things are accomplished, and then you set them aside and try to do some more. Has anything been accomplished, and can you give us a percentage of what your goal is that might have been accomplished?
We are enwrapped with 100% respect for one another. Thank you very much. Celebrate your holidays. Thank you.